I didn't know that a random seat on a crowded train would become the moment everything quietly began to change. At that time, my life felt like a series of delays, missed chances, unanswered prayers, and long silences that hurt more than noise ever could. Before we begin, if you've ever felt lost, stuck, or unexpectedly moved by life's small moments, take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps stories like this alive. I was 28, working a job that barely paid rent, living in a small apartment that smelled faintly of damp walls and instant noodles. Every morning felt heavier than the last. My parents worried about me, but hid it behind forced smiles. Friends had moved on, marriages, promotions, children, while I stayed in the same place, pretending I was figuring things out. That train journey wasn't for adventure. It was for survival. I was traveling to another city for a low-paying interview, already convinced I wouldn't get the job. My bank balance was dangerously low. My mind was worse, crowded with self-doubt, quiet shame, and the constant question, how did I end up here? As the train lurched forward, metal screeching against tracks, I stared out the window at passing buildings, feeling invisible. I didn't know then that someone would soon sit across from me, and that this ordinary journey would slowly unravel everything I thought I knew about love, timing, and myself. The train was loud, restless, full of conversations I wasn't part of. People laughed, argued on phones, complained about delays. I kept my headphones in without playing music, pretending I had somewhere else to be mentally. Across from me, the seat stayed empty for a while, and I was strangely grateful for that. I didn't have the energy for eye contact or polite smiles. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Did you eat? Travel safe. I stared at it, guilt tightening my chest. I hadn't told her how close I was to running out of money. I typed, yes, don't worry, even though my stomach was hollow and my wallet held just enough for a return ticket. The interview replayed in my mind before it even happened, me stumbling over answers, the interviewer nodding politely, the familiar rejection email that would follow. Why do I even try? I thought. Around me, life moved forward for everyone else. For me, it felt paused. At the next station, someone sat down across from me. I didn't look up immediately. I just noticed the faint smell of coffee, the rustle of a jacket. When I finally glanced up, our eyes met briefly. She smiled, small, unsure, polite. I nodded and looked away, my heart oddly tense. I told myself it was nothing. Just another stranger on another forgettable journey. Minutes passed in silence, broken only by the rhythmic clatter of the train. I kept glancing at the reflection in the window, tired eyes, unshaven face, a man who looked older than he felt inside. I wondered what she saw when she looked at me. Probably nothing worth remembering. She broke the silence first. Is this seat okay? She asked, even though she was already sitting there. Her voice was soft, careful, like she didn't want to disturb me. Yeah, it's fine, I replied, clearing my throat. We didn't talk after that. Still, her presence felt loud in a quiet way. I became painfully aware of my worn shoes, my cheap backpack, the fact that I had no real story to tell about my life. I imagined her getting off at some stop, returning to a world where things made sense. My phone buzzed again, this time an email notification. My chest tightened before I even opened it. Another rejection from a company I'd applied to weeks ago. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. I swallowed hard, locking my phone, fighting the urge to laugh or cry. She noticed. Everything okay? She asked gently. I wanted to lie. I always did. But exhaustion won. Yeah, just tired, I said. She nodded, as if she understood more than I'd said. Outside, the sky darkened, and the train pushed forward into the night, carrying two strangers, both quieter than their thoughts, toward places neither of us felt ready to face. The hours dragged on, each station a small reminder of how far I still had to go. The lights inside the train flickered occasionally, casting brief shadows that made the compartment feel colder. Hunger gnawed at my stomach, but I didn't want to spend my last few coins on snacks that wouldn't fill the emptiness inside. My thoughts spiraled. Every failure, every insult I'd ever received, every whispered judgment from family or coworkers. Why am I always behind? I asked myself. She noticed my distracted stare and offered me a small smile, as if sensing the storm inside me. I wanted to push her away, tell her to mind her own business, but I couldn't. For a fleeting moment, her calmness was a small anchor in my chaos. I thought about my apartment, the peeling paint, the unpaid bills, the loneliness that met me every night. Memories of arguments with my parents surfaced, their voices trembling with disappointment. "I'm such a burden," I admitted silently, closing my eyes and pressing my forehead against the window. Outside, the city lights blurred into streaks of orange and white. Her voice broke my reverie. "Do you travel often for work?" she asked softly. I hesitated, then muttered, "Not really, just trying to get by." The words sounded hollow even to me. She nodded, offering no pity, only presence. That small acknowledgement, silent, unassuming, made the loneliness a little less suffocating. By now, fatigue had seeped into my bones. The hum of the train felt like a lullaby I couldn't sleep to. My mind circled back to every failure in the past year: unpaid rent, empty fridge, the ridicule of colleagues who had made it, while I remained invisible. Every laugh outside, every confident step someone took seemed to mock my hesitation, my inability to change my circumstances. Her presence was steady, almost unnervingly so. We didn't talk much, but I felt her noticing the small details: the worn pages of my notebook, the faint smell of instant coffee on my jacket, the way my hands trembled slightly when I reached for my phone. I hated that she could see through me so easily, yet a part of me craved it. The train slowed at another stop. Families boarded with children, couples huddled together. I felt painfully aware of my solitude, my lack of anyone rooting for me. My stomach growled, loud enough for me to curse quietly under my breath. She glanced at me, her expression unreadable, then offered me a granola bar from her bag. Thanks," I mumbled, feeling a flush creep up my neck. Sharing something felt almost revolutionary. We ate in silence, the hum of the train and distant chatter filling the gaps between us. That simple gesture of kindness stayed with me, lingering in my mind long after the wrapper was gone. Night had fully fallen, and the train rattled through unfamiliar terrain. I leaned my head against the window, watching shadows of trees flicker past, each one reminding me of everything I'd lost and feared I'd never regain. Thoughts of failed interviews, angry phone calls from landlords, and the persistent judgment of family replayed endlessly. "I'm stuck. I'm invisible," I thought. She finally spoke again, her voice soft and almost hesitant. "Do you ever feel like nothing ever changes for you?" Her words were gentle, but they cut through me like a knife. I swallowed hard, unsure whether to speak or retreat. "Yeah, all the time," I admitted. Her silence that followed was not cold, it was comforting. She didn't try to fix me, didn't offer cliches. She simply sat there, letting me exist in the space between despair and the faintest spark of connection. I thought about the decisions that led me here, the ones I'd made and the ones imposed on me. Maybe this is just life, I whispered to myself, a series of waiting rooms and near misses. The train jolted, and for the first time that day, I allowed a deep exhale. Somewhere between the hum of the wheels and her quiet presence, I realized survival wasn't just about money or success. It was about enduring, minute by minute, and somehow finding small moments of humanity amidst the struggle. By now, my body ached from hours of sitting, my mind weighed down by an exhaustion deeper than sleep could fix. I felt hollow, both physically and emotionally, like a candle burning at both ends. The city lights outside had given way to complete darkness, broken only by fleeting glimpses of passing stations. My thoughts kept circling the same questions. Why am I like this? When will something change? The girl across from me was quiet, reading a worn paperback, occasionally glancing up as if checking that I was still alive in some sense. I envied her calmness, the way she seemed untouched by the world's relentless pressure. I wanted that peace, but I didn't know how to reach it. I closed my eyes and let the hum of the train fill the space around me, feeling the weight of every failure I'd carried for years pressing down. There was no magic answer, no sudden insight, only a quiet, nagging awareness that I couldn't continue like this. That realization scared me more than any rejection ever had. Something has to give, I thought, though fear tightened around the idea. I didn't know what change looked like, only that the path I was on, silent, lonely, endlessly uncertain, couldn't last forever. My chest felt tight, my stomach twisted, and in that darkness, with her silent presence across from me, I felt the first faint stirrings of a decision, though I didn't yet know what it would be. The next hour passed in tense quiet. My mind was a storm of fear, doubt, and the faintest glimmers of clarity. I realized I couldn't rely on waiting for luck or kindness to rescue me anymore. I had to act, even if the steps were small, even if failure seemed inevitable. I looked across at her again. She smiled softly, like a mirror reflecting the part of me I had ignored for too long, a spark that refused to die, even under the weight of repeated disappointment. I took a deep breath, feeling the tightness in my chest loosen slightly. I have to try. Again. The words were simple, almost mundane, but they carried the weight of a vow I made to myself. I didn't know the outcome, didn't know if the next step would succeed, but I could no longer stay paralyzed by fear. I imagined the practicalities, budgeting tighter, applying more strategically, facing rejection without collapsing. Each thought carried a sting of risk, a whisper of potential failure, but also a strange clarity. I wasn't sure where this decision would lead, only that inaction had failed me for too long. The train rattled onward, and for the first time that night, I felt a flicker of purpose, quiet but undeniable. Whatever lay ahead, I would meet it head-on, even if my heart raced, even if uncertainty loomed like a shadow I couldn't shake. The following weeks were anything but easy. I woke earlier than I ever had, worked longer than I thought I could, and faced rejection after rejection. Each no felt like a punch, but I forced myself to stand back up, shaking off the sting, and reminding myself that this time, I couldn't give up. I lived frugally, skipping meals, walking miles instead of taking buses, borrowing books instead of buying them. Anything to stretch what little I had and invest in the future I was trying to create. There were nights when I sat alone, staring at my reflection, exhausted, asking myself if it was worth it. The fear of failure still lurked in the corners of my mind. But with each small win, a positive response from a potential employer, a project completed, a problem solved, I felt momentum building, a quiet proof that my effort was not meaningless. She sometimes appeared in my thoughts, a symbol of unexpected kindness and human connection that reminded me, even during solitude, that survival didn't have to mean isolation. I learned to be patient with myself, to push forward without expecting immediate results. Life wasn't magically transforming overnight. It was a slow climb, a series of small steps strung together by determination and grit. And slowly, those steps began to add up. I wasn't wealthy, famous, or problem-free, but I was moving forward, inch by inch, toward a life I could feel proud of living. Months later, I looked back and realized how far I'd come, not in grand gestures, but in small, tangible ways. I had secured a steady job that, while modest, allowed me to breathe without constant fear of bills. I had reconnected with family, apologized where I had failed, and built quiet routines that brought stability and small joys. The train journey that had begun in despair now felt like a turning point, not because of one person or one moment, but because it taught me the value of endurance, of noticing kindness, and of quietly reclaiming control over my life. I often thought about the girl who had shared a granola bar with me that night, how her simple act reminded me that human connection can pierce even the heaviest loneliness. I learned that success isn't always dramatic or overnight. It is persistence, patience, and the courage to face fear without guarantees. I discovered that even in struggle, small acts of care, toward oneself or others, can ripple into life-changing moments. If you've ever felt stuck, remember this. Progress isn't always visible, and change doesn't have to be loud. Start small, keep going, and allow yourself to notice the little sparks of hope around you. And if this story touched you, take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a comment sharing your own experiences. Because every journey, no matter how difficult, is worth witnessing and sharing.